All right. So as I was saying, who wouldn't be excited to know this exact day that Jesus was to come back? Nobody here? Wouldn't it be awesome? Wouldn't it be awesome to know, okay, on October 22nd, 2016 will be the day that Jesus returns. I mean, it's awesome. When we're giving the timeline, and you all remember when you were kids, your mom or your dad was like, all right, when I come back, when I come home, I want the dishes washed, I want your rooms cleaned, I want your homework done, and okay, what time are you going to be here, Dad? Oh, I'll be here at 4:30. Man, we start to work, around 4:25, trying to get everything done. But it's because at a certain time, at a specific time, something is going to happen. If God was to say to us on October 22nd, 2016, Jesus will come back again, we would be revived. Our churches around the world would be filled because we had what we thought was the correct message. And that's what Willie Miller was doing. Willie Miller was preaching that on October 22nd, 1844, Jesus would return. This tremendous revival hit North America. And it spread to Europe as well. People were excited. Jesus is coming back. We have found it in the Bible. We're ready. But what happened on October 22nd, 1844? Nothing. Here on earth. Nothing happened. Can you imagine? I mean, how disappointed would you be? How disappointed would you be? I mean, yeah, if if you're meeting somebody for lunch or something, maybe you go on a date and you're supposed to meet that person there for lunch and they don't show up, yeah, you'd be disappointed. If you're expecting a Christmas present and you know what it's supposed to be, you're not supposed to know what it's supposed to be, but you know what it's supposed to be and you don't get it, how disappointing would it be? I remember a specific Christmas when somebody thought they were going to get something that got really excited and they pulled it out of the box and it wasn't what they thought it was going to be. It was a bread maker. So a lot of times this happens to us, huh? It happens when we expect something major to happen, and when it doesn't happen, it's a huge letdown. It's a huge disappointment. I've had that when I've studied and I thought to myself, oh man, I aced that test. That was good. That was easy. I get the results back and I'm like, what in the world? There's more red marks on here than black ink. But when you expect Jesus Christ to return, when you have prepared, when people have sold their farms, when people have given up their living, when people maybe at some point were even mocked, and Jesus didn't return, that's why it was called a great disappointment. But here, Jesus writes to the Church of Philadelphia. The reason that time in history was known as the Church of Philadelphia, or the time of Philadelphia, is because they were moving forward. There was a great love, a great passion amongst church members. As a matter of fact, when the Seventh-day Adventist Church was established, it was essentially established by a bunch of teenagers, by a bunch of young adults. We don't realize that. A lot of times when we think that the early church founders for the Seventh-day Adventist Church, we imagine them, with gray hair and old and maybe with a cane. When they started the Seventh-day Adventist Church, when they started the Seventh-day Adventist movement, they were young adults. Some of them were younger than I am. They loved each other. Most of them were younger than I am. They loved each other. They encouraged each other. Can you imagine how disappointed they would have been? What would have happened if they wouldn't have had that relationship before? What would have happened if they wouldn't have loved each other before the great disappointment? After they were all disappointed, people started, all kinds of movements started flourishing, all kinds of strange things started happening in churches. But what was more sad is that there was people oppressing them. Wait a second. Wasn't Jesus supposed to come back for you? What are you still doing here? Oh, man. But these people, a certain group, a small group, the group that came out of there the strongest, or one of the strongest, was the Seventh-day Adventist Church, the Seventh-day Adventist movement. And it's because they loved each other. They were like a close family. And although they were disappointed, what did they do? What happens when we get disappointed? A lot of times we just give up. What happened with this small group is they started studying. They were like, okay, something's not right. We did the math is right, but we messed up somewhere. And they started studying Scripture. They started digging deeper, one another, having small group Bible studies. Sometimes they went all through the night studying the Bible. They would pray for each other. They encouraged each other. They had Philadelphia. They had brotherly love. And that's why the Seventh-day Adventist Church was able to start. That's why the Seventh-day Adventist Church had such a strong foundation, because they had love for one another. And it says here that those of the church of Satan, essentially, they will be humbled. Those people who were mocking these our early church fathers, saying, what happened? Why are you still here? I thought this was going to happen. I told you nothing was going to happen. Once the Seventh-day Adventist Church understood that Jesus wasn't going to come to the earth, this wasn't going to be the sanctuary. The sanctuary was in heaven. Y'all remember we studied that? What was it? I think it was Saturday night in our Daniel series. They understood Jesus wasn't walking to earth. He had to enter the most holy place in heaven to atone for us, to make us one with God before He could return. Then they were excited. Then they understood. Then they could show to the others, we made a mistake. Yes, Jesus wasn't supposed to come here to earth. This is what's truly happening. There is a sanctuary service happening in heaven for us. So that's why it says here that those of the synagogue of Satan, they will be made to bow down. But let's continue to read in verse 10. It says, because you have kept my command to persevere, I also will keep you from the hour of trial which shall come upon the whole world to test those who dwell on the earth. Behold, I am coming quickly. Hold fast what you have, that no one may take your crown. He who overcomes, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go out no more. I will write on him the name of my God, and the name of the city of my God, the new Jerusalem which comes down out of heaven from my God, and I will write on him my new name. Isn't that awesome? Essentially what Jesus is saying here is, you went through something hard, because He says that you are weak. He says, but you still persevere. The way that they were able to persevere is because they had brotherly love. They had love for one another. Isn't that awesome? Let me ask you guys a question. When Jesus told His disciples, love each other the way that I have loved you, do you think He literally meant that? Because I actually heard a pastor say, well, I don't think that's exactly what it means. I think what He means is we just have to put up with one another. I was like, man, that's like Jesus' standard is up here. You, by saying we just have to put up with one another, you just put the standard way down here. I could put up with anybody. I just ignore them and I start daydreaming. I could put up with a bunch of nonsense. But what does Jesus say? Love each other the way that I have loved you. Does that mean I'm just going to put up with them? Or does that just mean, well, if I see them at church, then I'll greet them? Does that mean if I see them maybe at the shopping center, I'm like, oh, hey, keep walking, walk faster. Hopefully the pastor didn't see me. Is that what that means? My brother and I, we love each other. We're very different in the way that we express ourselves. We have the same similarities, we have the same likes, a lot of the same dislikes. And when we see each other, we get excited. It makes us happy. It makes me happy to see my nieces and nephews. It makes me happy to see my sister-in-law. The kind of love, the challenge that Jesus set before us is to have that kind of love. But He even takes it a step further by saying, the way that I have loved you. What that means is, that love that Jesus wants us to have for one another is a kind of love that sacrifices and would even be willing to die for your brother or your sister in church. That's a high standard, isn't it? But if I try to do it myself, it's impossible. Because as humans, we're just looking at, oh, look at what she's wearing. She can't come to church like that. Look at I can't stand it when that guy gives a lesson. That's what happens. When we try to do it on our own, all we're looking for is the problems in other people's lives. But when we ask the Lord to help us, when we ask the Lord to save us from ourselves, all of a sudden you begin to see people in a different light. And it's beautiful. Because I have met people, I have heard testimonies, in myself, when you try to do things on your own where you didn't have that love of God, to do things that God had required you to do, or to do things that God had asked you to do, almost seem impossible. But when you ask the Lord to help you, when you ask the Lord to save you, to transform you. Things begin to change and you don't even know it. But it's because you have asked God to do it. This church of Philadelphia, this is a representation of what we need to have. The good things that we should have. And it's interesting because it says there that, that this church was weak, it was tired, had gone through a difficult time. That can apply to us as well. A lot of times when we go through hard times, it's terrible to feel that you're alone, isn't it? When you're working on a hard project, when you're doing something by yourself, it's terrible to try to do it on your own. I remember when I was working on my Jeep, when I was still youth pastor in Killeen, and I was under there and I was trying to do something that was just so hard, and sometimes I'd be under there for a couple of hours. I remember one time I told her, just come with me. I don't know, just for moral support. And she went with me that day. And I was like, well, this isn't so bad. I was enjoying myself. I was having fun. Struggles were still there, but because my wife was there, because somebody that I loved was there, and somebody that loved me back, the trouble didn't seem as hard. Satan tries to get us with financial problems, with marital problems, with job problems, with health problems, with family problems, with relationship problems. He tries to oppress us. And a lot of times when we feel alone, when we isolate ourselves, Satan can overcome us. But if we have that brotherly love, if we live up to that challenge, if we love each other the way that Jesus Christ loves us, and if we look out for our brother and sister who may be going through a hard time, and we stick with them, and we show them, you know what, I'm with you. And the whole entire church does the same thing. That person can overcome. That person will remain in the family. I was looking through Facebook, I was getting notices on my phone of everything that was going on in Paris, and it broke my heart. It broke my heart. And this morning they started putting on Facebook, for those who don't know, you have a picture of yourself or something that represents you. And I guess you can say as a wash, they had the Paris flag over your picture. And that was supposed to represent that you are standing with Paris, that you are standing with friends. And I thought to myself, it's easy to do that because they're so far away. But how often do we not stand with our brother and sister who's right next to us who may be going through a hard time? It's a little bit backwards, isn't it? Jesus set a challenge by telling the disciples, love each other the way that I have loved you. Of our own strength, it's impossible, but if we trust in Jesus Christ, Jesus, because He lives in us, He's the one that begins to express that love through us. But He says, keep holding on. Verse 10, verse 11, it says, behold, I come quickly. Hold fast what you have, that no one may take your crown. So this church might have been going through some difficult times, but it says, hold fast. Continue to push forward. Continue to strive as brothers and sisters. How does the lion work? Who does the lion target? Do you think the lion is going to try to attack the center of the pack? No, he tries to go for the weak ones. He tries to stay with or try to pick off the ones who are lingering behind. But if we are a united force, if we have that love that Jesus Christ has challenged us to have, do you think people would be leaving our church? It'd be a lot harder, huh? It seems to be that sometimes the scragglers, the ones who are lingering on the outside of that giant herd, seems to be our youth and young adults. A lot of times they get on our nerves, huh? Oh, the way that they dress. Oh, the way that they talk. Oh, the music that they listen to. Do you think Jesus would be saying that about them? It's a challenge, huh? A lot of times we have brothers and sisters, we're not called to tolerate each other. We're not called to just put up with their nonsense. We're not called just to shake their hand in church. We're called to love them. Because when we love each other, when we have love in our church, the people around, they want love. I was thinking to myself, it's so ridiculous what we flock to, all this bad news. What if there was a news station to have just good news 24/7? The good news of a couple that, twins that were separated at birth, but they came back together. or a couple, that they've been married for 50 years and they went through all these difficult times. What if we had a news station that just had good news? Wouldn't that be awesome? I'd be watching that stuff all the time because I'm tired of hearing all these bad news. All this world has is bad news. And a lot of times when we don't have the love of Jesus Christ in our churches, why would they want to come to our church if all we have is bad news, if we don't have that same relationship that we are called to have? But if we have that love, if we have that brotherly love that Revelations 3 is speaking about, if we have that love that God, Jesus Christ has asked us to have, don't you think people would flock to that? Yes. Because they're hurting. Because they're suffering in the world. Because we want to feel loved. Everybody wants to feel loved. God has created that into us. We are programmed to want to be loved. That's why Jesus says here to persevere. And I think when he says to persevere, he isn't just speaking to one person saying, persevere, Andy, or persevere, Susan. He wants the whole entire church to persevere, to continue to hold fast, to continue to press forward. There's a couple of people, there's different kinds of people in our lives, and I read this illustration that I thought was pretty good. I don't know how it happened. As I was thinking about it, I was like, that doesn't make sense. But I'm going to tell anyway. So these two frogs fall into a tub of milk, or into a container of milk, two separate containers, I guess, of milk. And one of those frogs that fell into that milk said, well, I'm going to die, and just drowned. But the other little frog just started, swimming. He's like, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up. And just kept swimming and swimming and swimming until that milk turned into butter and he was able to jump out. But I thought to myself, what in the world were those frogs doing in milk? I don't know. It didn't make sense. But I was like, that still proves the point. That still proves the point. A lot of times in our lives, we can say, well, this challenge is just too hard. This whole thing of God, Jesus asking us to love each other the way that He has loved us, it's just too hard. And we sink down like the little frog that didn't want to swim. But the more we wrestle, the more we struggle, the more we struggle with that challenge that Jesus Christ has put before us, our difficult situation can turn into butter and we can jump out. Jesus Christ has called us to persevere, to not give up. And why does He say, I want you to persevere? Why does Jesus say, I want you to continue to press forward? It says it right there. He says, behold, I come quickly. Jesus says, hold on, you're almost there. Continue to push forward as a group. Continue to push forward as a united church. Continue to push forward as a church that loves each other. Push forward together. Endure. It isn't always easy. Derek Anthony Redmond, who was born on September the 3rd in 1965 as a retired British athlete. During his career, he held a British record for the 400-meter sprint and won gold medals in 4 of the 400-meter relays at the World Championship and European Championship in the Commonwealth Games. However, his career was blighted by a series of injuries. At the 1992 Olympic Games in Barcelona, he tore his hamstring in the 400-meter semifinal, but continued to race limping and with assistance from his father. Managed to complete a full lap of the track as the crowd gave him a standing ovation. The incident has become a well-remembered moment in the Olympic history, having been the subject of one of the International Olympic Committees to celebrate humanity. Videos can be seen and used in advertisements by Visa and illustrations of the Olympic spirit and featured in Nike's Courage commercial in 2008. I watched that video. You guys got to watch it. His name is Derek Anthony Redmond. This poor guy who had trained his whole entire life, had won gold medals, had won championships. At the most important race of his life, he's running full sprint. And I think in the video he's like second or third. And all of a sudden tears his hamstring. And just comes to a stop. And I thought to myself, oh, how disappointing. Ever since he was a child, he probably dreamt to have that gold medal. And as he's hobbling along, some official guys come and try to stop him. And he says, no, I'm going to continue to race. He's hobbling along. All of a sudden, this man jumps out from the bleachers. And they try to stop him. He says, no, get out of my way. That's my son. And he grabs his son, and together they continue to race until he completes it, until he finishes. Brothers and sisters, that is the kind of perseverance that we need. That is the kind of perseverance that at times we lack in our own families, we lack in our own churches, we lack in our own, wherever we may be. We need that perseverance, but we need that brotherly love that was shown by that dad. To be able to jump out of his seat, to grab his son and not let him quit. To finish the race. Yeah, he may not have gotten a gold medal, but who won gold medal that year? I don't know. But we know that Derek Redmond's dad was willing to jump out of the bleachers and help his son finish that race. Sometimes it doesn't matter what medal we get. What matters is that we finish the race. Brothers and sisters, Jesus Christ has called us to live like the Church of Philadelphia, to have love bursting out of this building for each other. That we love each other so much that people around us, people in our community, people want to be part of this because they also want to feel loved. There are already enough obstacles in the world trying to stop people from getting to Jesus. There are already enough obstacles trying to keep people from surrendering their life to Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ says, hold fast, continue to push forward united in brotherly love. When one of us is weak, when one of us is tired, when one of us doesn't feel like they can continue on, we should be there for them. And we know to say, you know what, brother so-and-so or sister so-and-so hasn't been to church in a while. I'll make them some cookies. You know what, if I'm going to get cookies that way, I may not start coming to church. Call each other up. Send each other the text message. Hey, I didn't see you at church today. I want you to know that we're praying for you. You know, let us know if you need anything. That is what makes a church strong. That is how we will be able to finish this race. Holding on and encouraging each other. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we're so grateful for Jesus Christ. Lord, it is impossible for us to try to love each other the way that you have loved us. We can't. But Lord, you have asked us to do this, and we know that the only way that it's possible for us to love the way that you have loved is if you live in our hearts. Lord, help us to endure. Help us to press forward and make it to the finish line as a group, not just by ourselves. Help us to be able to lift up our young people, Lord. Help us to lift up our elderly people. Help us to lift up those people, Lord, who may not be coming to church, maybe have had their feelings hurt. May we reach out to them and love them the way that you love them. Lord, we know that you're coming soon. Lord, and we want the Paris church to be a representation, be represented up in heaven, Lord. May we be able to sing praises and glory to your name together. In your name I pray. Amen.